Hello, this is Rodney with the Triton Waves update for Wednesday, July 26th. Let's start off with the ES. There's a trend line that started on June 5th that continues through today that we broke 2 days ago, and there was the ES came all the way down to 1321, 1322, and with a long candle hit the support on the bottom side of the trend line and finished on the high side. So I expect this to continue up to the trend line and maybe a 50% retracement of the move from 1375 down to 1321. So that puts it right about at, let me see, actually we can take a retracement tool, and that puts us at about 1340. Now you can see on the left-hand chart here that there's a lot of confluence of all the exponential moving averages right in this area over here. And it looks to me like the T1, this is T1, T2, T3, T4, T5 in case you've just joined us. And the right-hand side is the identical chart in time frame, but the first three waves are combined in the top wave, and the second two are combined in the bottom wave to show. It's a little bit easier to see. So if we separate out the left chart a little bit, it looks like it's starting to roll over. The short wave on number 1 is still above 0, but the long wave on number 2 is falling down a little bit. And what I would look for is for T3 to roll over here and for it to hit 1350, which would be ideal. You can see if we break this down a little bit to the 144 chart, 144 minutes, these are cash charts. It finished on the right-hand chart at 1335, and you can see the waves are descending from high to low as the cash is ascending higher highs. So in terms of Fibonacci progressions, that is not a good sign. Also, the 8-period moving average has crossed the 21-period moving average and has crossed the 50 and is approaching the 377. And also, when the 21-period moving average crosses the 55, it usually is a signal that it's reached some kind of a peak. And when it does that, it kind of pops for a couple days and then takes it out. Let's look at the 21 here. So the 21-period moving average made a move on the 19th all the way from 1370 down to 1323. Now you can see today it moved above the short wave moved above 0, and the entire short wave, you can see on the left-hand chart, the entire wave moved above 0. So this gives more this gives it a little more ammunition to move up to the 350 level. Now I'm looking at the 21, and the 21's been very consistent. And this is something that you have to watch for when you're looking at the Triton waves, that they seem to go above and below the 377. So on the right-hand chart, this area right in here, it exactly hit it and backed off. It made its way above and below it. So when it does that, this becomes a new target. And you can see when it moves across here, that low, because it had such a struggle going up and down the 377, when it came back down here, it leveled off within 5 or 6 points on the S&P of that. So when it goes up and down above the 377, now The 321 becomes a new target, and when it goes all the way up here, comes back down, it comes down right to where it struggled with the 377. And again, when it came down again, it struggled again at the same point. So I'm looking for at least a move to 1343, and right now at 10 o'clock at night Eastern Central Time, it's 1334. So it's got 9 points to go on the upside, which would be ideal. And also, because this short-term wave moved above zero, but the long-term wave is still above zero, the 377 in coordination with the trend line at 341, somewhere in this area, might be a good place to short. Now let's take a look at an intraday chart of the S&Ps. This line is at 8:30 in the morning. The short-term T1 crossed over, and when you're looking at the tick charts, it's better to use the T1, T2, maybe T3, but you only want to use the long ones for confirmations or anchors. So this at almost at 8:31, it crossed to the downside on T1 over here, but it's reflected in the composite chart on the right, and took it down all the way to this area at 1328 at 10:07 in the morning, and then made a climb until 2:10 at 1336, and then proceeded to go down into the close. It had a little bit of a pop into the close. I think it was up like 500 today. And especially after the close, the shorts came in and ran it up. But you can see that in the overnight session that the T1 is reflected in the left-hand chart, and over here on the composite chart, T1 is about to go a little bit higher, which gives more support to the 1341 to 1345 area that we talked about before. Okay, let's take a look at Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs went below zero on 7/17 at approximately $98 and came down to $91. Now it's back on an uptrend as of 2 days ago, July 23rd, and it's moved past the 377. The long term has come above the 21. Has come up above the long term T4, and I believe that's, let me see, T4, T5 are now above zero. This is a very, very clean cross right here. So you can expect Goldman Sachs to move a little bit higher, and I wouldn't short that until we had confirmation that at least T1 had crossed back down to the downside. Okay, this is a chart of Apple, what it did today, and there is a lot of garbage going on here. There was obviously people were throwing this in at the market, because if I extend this, you can see these tails on these candles are just unbelievable. So somebody threw it in, got a 590 trade, and it ended up the trade at 602. So a lot of people got jacked around on this, because I've never seen patterns like that appearing in this. And this is kind of very difficult to read right here. It's an example of something that if you can't read it, stay away from it. Let's look at the 21 and see what's happening on that. The 21 went above zero on 629, at 581 and just crossed below zero today, but it was such a monster move that I actually expect um, I expect this to come back because this is an extreme sell at almost 30 on the wave on T5. So I expect this to bounce back up at least to 580, 590, and as this 377 curves around, it might be as much as 393. But if you look at the daily chart on Apple, it really looks like it's starting to roll over a little bit. So if we look at this, it looks like it could come back up to the 580, 590, which confirms the 21-minute, and it almost, and if you refine the search on the left-hand side, it is starting to roll over. So it could hit the next, once it bounces back up, it could hit the next target of 544. And you always have to keep in mind, you have to know where the 377 is an all-time. So if you project this, if you project a 377 up a little bit like this, it may come down. So it probably will at least equal 532 at some point, but there is a bounce in here. Remove that. Okay, let's take a look at Baidu on the daily. The T1 has already gone, has breached the zero line, so it's above zero for the last 2 days. Now these are long-term looks, and sometimes it'll breach it but just roll over. Now in this case, T5 is below zero since June 5th, and it's the first time it's been below zero since April of 2009, since the stock was $20. So I wouldn't put my money on the long side on Baidu. Let's break it down to 21-minute and see what that looks like. 21-minute is very choppy. It's not giving us anything. 610 tick chart usually works on Baidu. It's not really working that well today because it had such a monster rise yesterday. Let's take a look at Amazon next. Amazon on the daily. On the T1 is completely below zero, so it's a sell on T1. T2 is 0.07, so it's like one notch about to go below zero. And you notice the last time it went above zero, it went from 182 up to 231. The last time it went below zero on T2, it went from 222 down to 172. So if you'll notice on the right-hand chart, on the daily chart, in the last year, the 377 has been support all the way up, and then it went up and down and up and down, and there were a lot of people who thought it was just going to take out its lows after that, but actually it's consolidated. In the meantime, T1 started going above zero, which was an indication that it was going to take off. So in fact, it did 182 to about 220, 230, depending on where you got in, where you got out. But right now, because the short wave on T5 is kind of hovering zero, T4 is buried almost near zero, T2 is almost below, and T1 is below. I would not be surprised to see Amazon from the daily chart come down and hit 194, which would also fill the gap from April. So that would be like a perfect scenario. Let's break that down into You can see where it moved up here on 718. Actually, I think this may have been earnings where it popped up 16 points. And then right after that it came down. This is a 21-minute chart. So on the consolidated charts, it's already moving below zero. So any move to the upside, any move back up to resistance at 221, if it gets there, is a short. Now Amazon works best on a 377 on a short chart. So let's see what that's doing. Okay, so that's a nice move. The long consolidated chart on the right moved up on 713 from $215, and then it started the smaller chart is kind of iffy on this one. If you look at the longer ones, the T3 actually looks pretty good. Moves up, moves down, and it's actually been down since, let me see here. This is a 377 tick. It's been down since 720, July 20th. And that made a move from 226 to what it is today, which is 217. So any move back up to 221 looks like a short on Amazon. Let's take a look at MasterCard, which we haven't looked at before. T1 on the left-hand side follows it perfectly. And the idea is to find the wave that works best with that stock, because they're relatively consistent for long periods of time. So this goes back to, this is all of July. Actually, it's 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, it's gone from a peak of 444 when the consolidated T1, T2, T3 chart went below zero all at once. It cleared this whole area. So it's the first time below zero, which was a very, very good entry. Came back down after T1, T2, T3 all went below zero, came back above zero at 418, went up to 435, came back below, cleared this whole space, and went back above at 407, and we are now at 412. So the pattern on this looks like it's going to go to at least 423 and probably a little bit higher, probably to 430. It'll probably do a 50% retracement from here to here, so let's see what that is. So it's 426 to 430. All right, before I leave, I want to take a look at the ES one more time on the 15-minute chart. Let's break this down a little bit more, because sometimes overnight it's fun to see what these guys are doing, because sometimes the trades in the middle of the evening really work out well. Okay, so this was a 2 o'clock trade on the 377 tick on the S&Ps. Right down here, the long chart, a long consolidated chart on the right. That happened right at about 1:59, 2 o'clock. These are Central Times at 13:37, and then came down. And if you look on the left-hand charts here, they come down really nicely at on T4, and then you can use, actually, when you're using T1 through T5, if you get in at one level, you can get out at the next level. So this would have been a perfect entrance at 1 o'clock at 13:37, at 2 o'clock, and then an exit at 2:59, just as it rounds the corner. That's all I have for tonight. I will talk to you at the next update. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.